Hi all, and welcome to a new Programming the Net technical tutorial. In our previous video, we looked at styling websites, right? We took our first steps with CSS. In this video, we're going to go back to HTML and learn how to work with HTML media elements, meaning how to include images, audio, video, or even other websites into our HTML pages. So I have my usual setup here, right? I've created a new glitch project. I've removed the unnecessary files, right? So pretty much the same thing that we've been doing in all of the tutorials. And I have my very basic HTML structure set up with the doc type, with the HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag. And the first thing that I'm going to want to do is just bring in an image. And that is being done using the image tag. The way that works is by opening a tag, typing img, and I'm just going to close the tag for now. And img is one of those tags that doesn't have any closing pair, right? So this doesn't work, and that's because there's never any content in there. It only works with attributes. And right now we don't see anything because we haven't told HTML like where to get the image from, right? Or like what kind of image to place in there. And the first attribute, the most essential one of the image tag, is the source attribute. And this is typed src. Like with all other attributes, you have to type equals and then a pair of quotes. And now we need to tell it where to get the image from. I have a link for an image that I'm going to paste in here. Right, so this is just a random image that I found. It's a photo of a painting by this artist Hilma af Klint that I really love. Check her out if you're into this kind of style. All I'm trying to say is that this is really just one image that exists online, right? So it's a website. The image ends in JPEG. You can use JPEG or PNG or other like GIFs and other popular image formats. So it's as easy as that, which is great news for us. All right, the next thing, let's change the size of this a little bit. Let's make it fit into our tiny window, because right now it's being displayed at sort of the original size that this file has. And in order to do that, we can use another attribute called the width attribute, right? So it's pretty self-explanatory. We just say width equals, and let's make it 250 pixels wide. So we see automatically the image resized at the right proportions, right? So it didn't get distorted, it didn't get stretched on the height side or on the width side. And that's because we didn't specify a height, so it just kind of got scaled down. We can make it as small or as big as we want. So yeah, that's the width attribute, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to keep it at 250. It seems like a good size for us to work with right now. Of course, you can also specify the height, right? So if we, instead of saying width equals 250, we said height equals 250, then our image would get scaled such that the height of it is 250. If we specify both width and height attributes, so I'm just going to say width equals 250 as well, we notice that our image is kind of forced to have the given width and the given height, and gets stretched. This is something that can be solved with CSS. We're not going to look at it in this tutorial. We're going to deal with it in a further tutorial. Like, for example, if you want to have an image that fits a very specific kind of size without it getting distorted, there are ways to maybe zoom in the image a little bit, or crop the edges, or make it fit within a box and have some space around it in order to make it fit. For now, we're just going to keep in mind the fact that if we specify both width and height, the image is getting stretched, and maybe just use one attribute at a time. All right, so that's one way of sizing an image. The other important attribute to remember for the image is the alt attribute. And this stands for alternative text. Let me just type in here, let's say a painting featuring an orange background and geometric shapes. The alt attribute is important for mainly two reasons. The first one is sort of a usability one. Let's say we're linking to this external source that has the image, and maybe in 2 years or 5 years, this website goes down, right? So let's say the link to our image doesn't work anymore. The way I'm going to fake break our link right now is by just deleting a character. So if the image is broken, if the link to the image is broken, we can see a little icon here showing us that there was supposed to be an image there, and then we see our alt text showing up, right? So it's a good way of sort of future-proofing your website if you are linking to external resources. The other really important reason for using alt text in your code is for people with visual disabilities, right? People who cannot see. The way they usually browse the internet is using mostly the text that's there, right? So there are all these devices that kind of parse the text on websites and speak it back to them. And whenever encountering an image, these pieces of software look for an alt text, right? So somebody who is visually impaired would be able to know that there is an image of a painting featuring an orange background and geometric shapes at that point in the website. Right, so keep in mind these two reasons. I recommend using alt text for all of your images. It's good practice. All right, I think these are the four main attributes for an image that we're going to cover now, right? So the source attribute, the alt attribute, the width and the height. The other thing that I want to show is the fact that, let me fix the link first. Great. The fact that we can also style the image from within CSS. And in order to do that, I'm going to remove, I'm going to keep the width attribute for now, but I'm going to give it a class, right? As we remember, we need a class in order to address an HTML element within CSS. So I'm just going to say class equals image number 1, for example. Of course, nothing happens right now because we need to create our style. So I'm just going to say style.css, add a new file, and we need to link it from the head, right? So we say link rel equals style sheet href equals style.css. All right, I hope I didn't mistype anything. I hope that works. So let's go inside of style.css and address our image1 class. Don't forget about the dot at the beginning. And I'm going to give it a different width from inside of CSS. So in here, I'm just going to say width 50 pixels. See our image size changed to 50 pixels, even though we had a width specified in here inside of the attribute. The thing to keep in mind here is that the CSS declaration for the dimensions of the image overrides the HTML attribute, right? So it's good practice to use either one or the other and not both at the same time. But if you do end up using both at the same time, know that CSS takes precedence. So I'm actually going to remove it from here, change it back to 250. Same works for height, right? So we can give it maybe a height instead of a width. And then again, like any of the attributes that we've studied so far work on an image as well, right? So if we wanted to give it a border, let's say 4 pixels dashed red. If we wanted to give it a border radius, 25 pixels, right? And maybe remove the border if we don't like it. Everything that we've looked into so far works on images as well. All right, I think that's all there is to know about images for now. Yeah, the main thing that's left for a future tutorial is figuring out how to scale an image in order to fit a certain container, but we're going to get to that as well. And let's move on into sound. Yeah, for sound, we use the audio attribute, the audio tag. And this works in a slightly different way than the image, in the sense that instead of having an attribute that points to the source of the audio in the same way that we have for the image, right? The SRC attribute, we need to place another tag inside of the audio tag, which is the source tag. The source tag is used for audio and for video exclusively. We're going to do video after this, so you'll see how that works. And the reason these are different is because audio and video made their way into HTML later than images did, right? So images were there kind of in the very beginning, in the early 90s, when the web was starting. Audio and video got in maybe 5-10 years after that. And the reason we have these source tags inside is because you can actually specify multiple sources for an audio or a video, right? So the same contents of a file, but maybe with a different extension, right? Like maybe the first one is MP3, the second one is WAV, and so on. And this is kind of a caution measure in the case when a browser is not able to play a certain format. That's happening less and less these days, just because most browsers are able to play most formats. However, when the audio and the video tag were introduced, support was kind of not uniform yet. For our purposes, we're just going to use one single source tag, and we're just going to give it a source. This works in the same way with the SRC attribute. The source tag doesn't take a closing tag. It's similar to the image from that point of view. And I'm going to actually upload a sound file from my computer into Glitch, so we can also learn how to use this assets folder. So I'm going to say new file, upload the file, and I'm going to bring my Finder window, and I have this wave sound of a bell. Okay, so I'm going to hit open. Alright, so now if we navigate to our assets folder, I guess, in the Glitch navigation structure, we see our bell.wave. If we click on it, we get a link, right? So I'm going to copy this link. Let's just first open it in the browser to see exactly what's going on. Right, and we see that is just the sound that I just uploaded, playing, yeah, the sound of a bell. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it into our source attribute. Oops, I typed the wrong key. I pressed the wrong key. Okay, and we pasted it. Everything should be fine. However, nothing is showing up, and we also can't hear the sound. And that is because we're not showing anything, right? Like it's an audio. It's not supposed to look like anything. If we wanted to see the controls, right, like the audio player with the play button, with the volume toggle, and of the play bar and all of that stuff, we can add the controls attribute to the audio. Audio and video are a little bit strange in that they have some attributes that don't take any parameters, right? So we don't have to say control equals something. It's enough to just type controls in order for HTML to understand that we want to see the controls for this audio, right? So now we have our play bar in here, and if I click play, we should be hearing our bell. Great, so that's it with the controls. Let's see, what else do we need? There's also the loop attribute, right? Like if we wanted our audio to play on a loop once the user plays it for the first time. right? So I'm going to play it. Right, and it's just going to keep playing on a loop. I'm going to remove it for now, just for our own sanity. The other, or like one other attribute that's commonly used with audio is the muted attribute. And you see the icon changing here, the volume icon changing, right? So this means by default, the audio is going to have no sound, and it's up to the user to turn on the sound and then play it, right? Yeah, and this is useful maybe if you have a piece of audio on a website and like, yeah, you want the user to interact with it first in order to play the audio. Yeah, I can't think of a very specific example right now, but I've definitely used the muted attribute in the past. There is also the autoplay attribute. And autoplay again is quite self-explanatory, right? It just starts playing the audio whenever the page loads. Right, so if I remove the muted attribute because we need to hear it, we see that it automatically starts playing. The one thing to remember about the autoplay attribute is that it sometimes doesn't work on mobile browsers. Most of the time, I think it works in web browsers. However, audio is a little bit tricky to work with in terms of websites because the people designing HTML and JavaScript and the browsers don't want websites to sort of autoplay loud audio at people. It kind of makes for a bad user experience. I think this was abused a little bit maybe like 10-15 years ago when people started doing online ads, right? And like you'd go to a website and it would suddenly start blasting a commercial at you with video and audio. So sometimes autoplay can be a little bit tricky, and yeah, that's all to know about it for now. So if you're using this attribute and it seems like it's not working well, think about that, and again, reach out if you have any questions about it. Yeah, I think we're good with audio for now. Oh, the other thing that we're going to get into, especially once we start learning JavaScript, it's totally possible to play a sound on a page without having to show the controls, right? Like even in this example, if we remove the controls and had our sound autoplay, it would do so without the user having to see those, right? And like if we made it loop as well, we suddenly have a soundtrack to our page. Right, and like once we get into JavaScript, we can get into a little bit more complex patterns of like when to play a sound and like integrate user interaction and time into all of that. Yeah, for now though, we're just going to stick with the controls. All right, great. And let's move on to video. Video is super similar to audio in that we have the video tag, we have a source tag inside of it, and the source takes src attribute, and I'm going to upload the video as well from my computer. This is just like a very short clip from a silly project I did last year. I'm going to do the same thing of going to the assets folder, copying the URL and bringing it inside of our source. Right, so we see a video showed up here. It's huge, which is the same problem that we had with our image. So let's adjust the width and the height. That needs to be done on the video tag, right? Like for both the audio and the video, most of the controls that we do and the styling that we do is going to go on this top level tag. The source is simply for placing the link to where our file is coming from. So I'm just going to say width equals 250. Right, so suddenly our video is small. However, it's just a black screen. I assume that's how the video starts and it's not playing. So we should do something about that, right? And again, video is very similar to audio in that we have the controls attribute where it brings the video play bar in there. I'm going to actually make it a little bit bigger. Let's say 350. Right, and if I start playing the video, we're going to see, yeah, exactly what we're expecting. So there's controls, there's autoplay, just like we have with audio. Right, so as the page loads, the video starts playing. We have muted. Right, which starts playing the video without any kind of sound. We have loop, oops, which loops the video. Right, so it's very similar to audio from that point of view. Yeah, and I think width and height work in a very similar way to how they work on an image, right? So if we give it a width of 350 and the height of 350. Okay, I was wrong. They don't work in a very similar way to how they do for an image, in that the video doesn't get stretched. It's just the container of it that gets stretched, right? And the video keeps its aspect ratio inside of that container. Yeah, but I think overall the video tag is sort of an in-between the image and the audio, right? Structurally, it works kind of like the audio, but you can control its size just like you can with an image. So you see the video is looping now. And the last thing that I'm going to show for the video is the poster attribute. The poster attribute works, the poster attribute takes an image as a parameter, right? So poster equals, and I'm just going to paste the link from our image, right? Like the painting that we were using. All right, and the role of this poster is in many ways similar to the alt text on the image. So if our source is broken, right, we would see the poster showing up instead of the video. What I'm doing here is not great, in the sense that this image has nothing to do with that video, right? Like normally you'd have maybe one image that's a frame from the video, or maybe the first frame of the video, or the title card, or something like that serves as the poster. But yeah, this is the first reason to have a poster, right? In case the link to the video breaks at some point in the future. The second reason is because videos sometimes take a while to load, right? Like especially if internet connection is slow, and while the video is loading in the background, it's the poster that first shows up, right? So if you want to have kind of like a smooth experience for the user, regardless of their internet speed, then you'd have a poster. The poster would show up, and then eventually when the video is loaded, it would show up as well, right? So like if I refresh, you can see, maybe you can't even see it. Yeah, you can't even see it flashing, but maybe you can see it flashing on your computers. Yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all for video. And the next tag that I'm going to show you is a super fun one. It's one of my favorites, and it's called the iframe tag. I'm going to add this to the beginning of our document. So iframe is a really funny tag, at least to me, because it allows for embedding other websites into this website, right? And I'm showing it with the image, with the audio, and the video, because the topic today is media, and I think on other websites is media in the same way that an image or a video is media. And the way iframe works, it's again quite similar to the image, where we say iframe source equals, let's say, https www.upgradeacademy.ro, and close the iframe. Right, so we see, I'm just going to open this in a new window, so we see it a little bit bigger. We see our iframe, right? We didn't give it any size, so it just kind of took a default size. And we see the actual website that we placed in there loading inside of the iframe. This is quite rare to see on the internet, right? Like it's often more of a stylistic choice if you're working on a concept that involves something like this. Um, then it's a great tool to use, and I also think it's just fun to explore it. To me, it kind of serves like a window into another corner of the internet. Um, iframe also takes a width and a height, right? So, oops, so we can give it a width of, let's say, 500 pixels, height of 500 pixels as well. Yeah, I'm actually going to open it in a new window as well. Right, so we see the size of the iframe changing, and you see that it has a border that it comes with. It's yeah, a gray border that's sort of like three-dimensional. And this is again kind of a leftover from the older internet. If we wanted to remove that border, we could. Let's actually do it inside of the inspector, so we get a little bit more familiar with it. Right, so we see this is the iframe element that we typed, and like this is our image, our audio, and our video. If we open up the iframe, we see that there's an entire other HTML document inside, right? Like we see doc type HTML, we see the HTML tag with some crazy stuff in there. We see a head, we see a body, right? So this is really just like fetching that other web page and putting the HTML code within our own web page. So if we wanted to change its style, we could just say border none, right? And that would make the border disappear on the iframe. Or we could give it a really fun border, right? Like 10 pixels or oops, solid orange. All right, so that's the iframe tag. The one thing to keep in mind is that some websites, especially the larger ones like Google, for example, don't want people to embed their service. Right, so when you create a website, when you write a server, you sort of have the option to disable this kind of usage inside of the iframe, right? So we get this error of like www.google.com refused to connect. So if you try to embed a website and you get an error, know that it's because of that. Yeah, and the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is using iframes in order to embed YouTube videos, right? This is kind of the one place where iframes are still used quite a lot in like the more modern web or whatever. So if I go to YouTube and find a video, oh yeah, let's actually use this lo-fi hip-hop radio beats to relax study to.
Full Sail University is a place where creative dreamers go.
Oh no, not the ads. I'm going to mute it for now. Okay, skip ads. Right, so it's just a live stream of music. If we wanted to embed this video into our webpage, we would have to go to share, click on the embed button. Right, and we see that we get a piece of code over here that we need to bring inside of our website, and this piece of code is using an iframe in order to take the video. So let's copy this code and bring it onto our page. I'm going to remove our first iframe, paste the new one. Right, so we see we see our page now has a YouTube video embedded in it, right? So if I play it, we get the wonderful music that's coming from this channel. And this iframe, again, is like any other piece of code that we wrote, right? Like if we wanted to change some of its attributes, we could make it super wide. Looks like it's taking a while to load. Right, so we could make it super wide, we could make it super tall, or pretty much make any other changes to it. This frame border equals 0 is one other way of removing that strange border that I was talking about earlier, right? So in the example earlier, we changed it using CSS. There's also the frame border attribute you can use to remove it. I think if we change this to 1, we would start seeing the border on top of our YouTube embed. I'm going to leave it at 0. And the allow attributes has a few properties that relate to kind of the communication between this frame and its parent website, and we don't need to worry too much about it. All right, and just to have a little sanity check, let's open this link inside the Venue tab. Right, so we see that this is just like a web page, like any other web page, with only this video on it, right? So iframe really just brings another website into your own. And yeah, this works for YouTube, it works for Vimeo, and probably a few. I think Google Maps also, if you want to embed, can be embedded with iframes. Yeah, I think that's about it for the media tutorial, right? So we looked at how to bring images into our site, we looked at audio, we looked at video, and we looked at iframes. These are going to come in handy for our next assignments, and you can do so much with these four tags. So have fun exploring, and of course reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.